The flight to New York had been delayed for nearly 2 hours. Tired travelers crowded the waiting area of Gate 17, slumped in chairs, clutching carry-ons, and anxiously checking their phones. The mood was thick with impatience. Among them sat Andrew Miles, a single father in his early 40s with the weary posture of a man too used to bad luck. His plain clothes were wrinkled, his brown boots scuffed and dull. He clutched a weathered leather backpack like it carried the last thread holding his life together. His two children, Clara and Benny, leaned against each other asleep on the uncomfortable plastic seats. Andrew hadn't planned to be on this flight. He'd bartered with reward points, maxed out a credit card, and begged his boss for time off just to get to New York. His daughter Clara needed a specialized surgery, the kind no local hospital could perform. It was a shot, a slim one, but it was all he had. Every hour of overtime he'd worked, every meal he'd skipped to save money, had been for this moment. When the announcement to begin boarding finally came, Andrew leaned over and gently shook the kids awake. "Time to go, Peanut," he whispered to Clara, brushing a hand over her soft brown curls. Benny blinked groggily as Andrew slung the backpack over one shoulder and took each child by the hand. They moved forward as a unit, instinctively coordinated like only a small, tight family could be. As they approached the gate, the ticketing agent gave them a tired but warm smile. "Coach, all the way to the back," she said, scanning their boarding passes. Andrew nodded and shepherded the kids toward the plane, but a voice nearby caught his attention. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the agent told a sharply dressed woman standing to the side, "but there's been a seat reallocation. You've been moved to coach." The woman's eyes narrowed slightly. She was tall, elegant, her dark hair pulled back into a smooth bun. Her coat was tailored, her boots Italian leather. She looked at the ticket in her hand. First class printed in bold letters, then back at the agent. "This ticket clearly says first class." "Yes, ma'am. I understand. But we had to make an operational change." The seat was reassigned. "I apologize for the inconvenience." The woman blinked, but didn't raise her voice. She simply nodded once, tucked the ticket into her purse, and stepped aside. The people around her avoided eye contact. Nobody wanted to get involved. But Andrew couldn't ignore the injustice of it. He glanced at his kids, then at the woman, and turned back to the attendant. "Switch my seat with hers," he said. The agent looked confused. "Sir, you're in coach." "I know. But if she paid for first class and got bumped for no reason, that's wrong. Let her have my seat." The attendant hesitated. "That's highly irregular." "Then make it regular today." The woman looked up, startled. "You don't have to do that." "I know," Andrew said with a shrug. "But if it were my daughter getting booted from her seat, I'd want someone to speak up." The agent reluctantly tapped a few keys and handed over new boarding passes. Andrew took his kids toward the rear of the plane. As they settled into the cramped row, Benny immediately began poking at Andrew's phone while Clara giggled at the game he opened for them. Andrew leaned back and closed his eyes for a moment, breathing through the ache in his back and the tightness in his chest. Meanwhile, the woman took her first-class seat. She didn't speak. She gazed out the window with an unreadable expression, her hands folded in her lap. Several hours into the flight, a sudden cry pierced the cabin. A young boy near the front was choking. A mother's scream followed. Panic rippled through the rows. Passengers looked around helplessly. The flight attendants rushed toward the boy but froze, unsure of what to do. Andrew was already moving. Years of parenting, of midnight emergencies with Clara's asthma attacks, had trained his instincts. He pushed past startled passengers and reached the boy, asking quickly, "May I?" The mother nodded, tears streaming down her face. Andrew dropped to one knee and performed the Heimlich maneuver. 1, 2, 3 times. The boy lurched forward and gasped, a piece of candy shooting from his mouth. He began to cry. The cabin exploded in applause. The mother clung to Andrew, thanking him over and over. Back in his seat, Andrew wiped his forehead. The adrenaline left him exhausted. A flight attendant came by quietly with a drink and a folded piece of paper. She smiled and whispered, "She asked me to give you this." The note read, "Thank you. You didn't just give me a seat. You reminded me why people matter." When they landed at JFK, Andrew gathered the kids, who were now hungry and cranky. As they stepped into the terminal, a man in a sharp gray suit approached. "Mr. Miles," he asked, "my name is Daniel Evans. I work with Reynolds Aviation Group. Our CEO would like to speak with you." Andrew blinked. "Your CEO?" Daniel nodded. "She's waiting in the lounge." Bewildered, Andrew followed him through a corridor and into a quiet VIP lounge. Inside sat the woman from the plane, now in a sleek black business suit. She stood when he entered and extended her hand. "Mr. Miles, my name is Veronica Reynolds. I own the airline you just flew with." Andrew stared. "What you did back there, giving up your seat when you had nothing to gain, and then saving that child. You don't see that kind of courage or decency every day. Please sit." Over the next hour, Andrew told her everything. His wife had passed from an illness 5 years ago. He'd been working 2 jobs ever since, raising Clara and Benny alone. Clara had a congenital spinal condition that required surgery not available in their state. He'd been fighting insurance, filing appeals, borrowing money, anything to give her a shot. Veronica listened without interrupting. She never checked her watch. She never once looked bored. When he finished, she leaned forward. "I want to pay for Clara's surgery. And more than that, I want to offer you a position at Reynolds Aviation." Andrew's eyebrows shot up. "I'm not a pilot. I don't need pilots. I need people like you. I want you to help us build training programs, community outreach, employee development. You lead with your heart. That's what I want my company to stand for." He looked at his children. Clara was drawing on a napkin, a smiling sun above a stick figure with curly hair. Benny had fallen asleep on the sofa. Tears filled Andrew's eyes. "Thank you," he said softly. Months later, Andrew stood at the front of a bright training room. He wore a clean navy blazer with the Reynolds logo on his chest. Behind him hung a large photo of Clara beaming beside a hospital bed, now healthy and standing tall. The room was full of new employees, diverse, eager, curious. "Kindness," Andrew began, "isn't about big gestures. It's about standing up when nobody else will. Giving up a comfortable seat so someone else can sit with dignity. That's what this company is about. That's what we're building." In the back of the room, Veronica stood quietly, smiling. In a world often dominated by power and profit, Andrew Miles had reminded them that the smallest act of humanity could ripple outward, changing not just one life, but many. And sometimes, the most important journeys begin not with a boarding pass, but with a simple choice to do the right thing.